Okay, so we're going to be adding a new fragment to the default application we created. So we're going to right click here on the package name, the main package name for our default application. Say new, say fragment. In this case, we're going to create a fragment with a list. Okay, so this will make it a little bit more interesting that we in that list is probably the most common kind of data view that we use within Android applications. So here it's saying how should we define our new fragment. So we're going to put it in the same package. We're going to we're going to keep a lot of these defaults, but we're going to call the new fragment, we're going to call it um, instead of just fragment item, we're going to call it, let's say, movie list. Okay. And then it's going to then create a new layout file here with this name, and it's going to use this object for our recycler view adapter. And the recycler view adapter is something very powerful, and this is the most common way that lists are made within Android Studio or Android applications. So whenever you see, let's say, your an app that has a list of movies, or you see a list, an Android app that shows a list of apps that you can download, or you see a list of all your Instagram followers, it uses some kind of recycler view and a recycler view adapter to be able to hold all that data for your list. Okay, so it's a very, very important concept, and we'll learn more about this later. So you click on finish, and what you'll see here is that it's going to create several classes here. So first it's created a new um, fragment called item fragment. And then these were already here before, but it's also created the recycler view adapter. And then it also created a placeholder for data, just as a placeholder to just show data in the list. And then here on the layout, you'll see that it's created this was already here before. This is the, um, for the actual content of a list. Okay, so this was actually maybe misnamed, but it should have been just called fragment item, and this should be the movie itself. And this is the actual fragment for the actual list. Okay, if I click here, can't really see much until you go to maybe the, the XML view, but here you can see that we have a list item, and we want to define each item as a fragment item. If you then open up this one in the similar view, you can see that each item inside of the list is made up of two text items. You'll see this as we execute this and integrate it with our existing application. So if you try running this now, so I'm going to stop it, the previous instance of how I launched it, and I'm going to run it again. This brand new fragment is not yet integrated fully into the pre-existing code. So this is still how the application was working before when we first created it from the template. But what we need to do now is add that brand new fragment, the list fragment, and we need to tie it in with the rest of our code. So what we first have to do is we have to change our graph. So this here is the definition of how the application within that one activity, how it moves from one fragment to another. So what we need to do is define a new fragment. So what I'm going to do is, just to make my life easier, I'm just going to copy this fragment and just paste it below. and it's giving me some errors because it's saying it's defined twice. That's fine for a few minutes. So let's going to call this list fragment, okay? And okay, so when we copied and pasted this here, we need to specify the other Kotlin class that encapsulates this fragment. And if you look up here, this is what was created when we added a new fragment. So we need to add that. So item fragment here. And then we're going to give it a brand new title. So it says we're going to change the label. So it's actually, when you see these and you see it in this way here, with this little highlighted, it's actually saying I'm getting this content from my string definition. If you see here, it's actually a string definition defined in our string values. If you right click here and then see this, it's all of these defined here. So if I were to hold my control on the Mac, I hold the command button, or on Windows, I hold the control key. If I hold that button and I click it, you see how it kind of highlights. It will open it and then open it up in the inside of the strings XML. So here, I just need to define a new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say string name list fragment label, and I saw list fragment. So now I have a new string definition, okay? This is the content of that string definition, and this is the identifier for the string. So I'm gonna highlight that, put it into my clipboard, close this, and now I'm gonna come here, sort of double click there to highlight that, hit backspace, hit the delete key, and then I'm gonna press paste. Now I have the new string set as the label for this fragment. And then I'm going to say I'm going to use a different layout for this fragment. So you can see here for fragment 2, the second fragment, it's using fragment second. So I have to use the fragment that was destined for this, which is this one here, fragment item list. So I'm going to say fragment item list, okay? And then here, it's saying, when I display this fragment, I want to maybe go to another fragment. So I'm going to say, since this is completely user-defined, say list fragment to back to the first fragment, okay? And I'm going to say, from this list fragment, I want to go back over to my first fragment. We can add multiple here, but for now, we're going to just keep this here. But what I'm going to do here is on the first fragment that's shown, when it's shown, I want to be able to go to two possible actions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this in the clipboard, paste it, and I'm going to say I'm going to go from first fragment to list fragment. Okay, these are all user defined, as long as it's distinct and unique in here. And I want to go, when I go to this action, I want to go to my list fragment. And that's how I was defined here, list fragment. So from here, I want to go to this list fragment, okay? Now, if you go here, you sort of see right now, for now, it's kind of, now you can see that there's actually a visual display of this. So from the first fragment, I can go to the list fragment, and then from the list fragment, I can go back to the first fragment. So now it's all kind of visually displayed here. Now, but what's happening is if I try to run it now, let me show you what's going to happen. This is the first fragment. It still has only one button, and there's no way to go to that list fragment yet. So what's happened is we haven't actually added the second button yet. We added the action, but we didn't add the actual visual button. So that's what we have to do now. So we go over here, We go to the first fragment here, double click on that, open it up in both Designer and XML mode. So you can sort of see that there's a button and a text view here. Now, we want to add another button here. So you see here, there's something that says palette. It might be closed like this for you at some time. So if you click on it, you can see that there's a palette of different tools here that you can use. So I'm gonna just move this over so you can see this. I'm gonna close this attribute window. So what I'm gonna do is I want to add a new button here. Okay, so I'm gonna make some space for it. I dragged this one here over. I'm gonna click on this button, and I click and then drag. I'm gonna just drop it right here. You see that? How I did it, right? So now I've got two buttons along the top. I'm gonna move this over to make some space. And you can see that it is using these visual kind of markers to show you how it's aligning itself or where it's constrained. It's saying, put this button, some constraint to the edge of this window, and then the right edge of this button to be constrained to this edge of this window. So now we want to click on this button and kind of say, I want to be constrained to a similar way. I want to be constrained to the top of this text. And then the top of this button, I want it to be constrained to the top here. Oops, there, like that. And then this right side, I want to be constrained to this right edge. And then this button, I want to change the constraint to be to this button. So now, if I move this over, it's going to try to create spacing for it. Now, if you see here, we see the word next, we see the word button. Well, I want to change this text in here from saying button to something else. So how do I do that? So I bring up the attribute panel. This button is called just button. So I want to change this. I want to say btn list. I want to change that. And I press enter. And it gives me a little prompt to change and refactor this. I say accept, refactor it. But I want to change the text here from button to something else. What I did here was just changing the ID, but I want to change the text. So I scroll down, go to these common attributes. In this common attributes section, there's an attribute here called text. So I want to change this. So I'm going to call this list. Okay, this can be changed to anything because this is for you, the users, to see. But now if I accept it, now you can see that the word list shows up here. So if I click here, I want to open up the list fragment. Okay, so this is, so far it's done. So we think that maybe we might be done. So let's try it. Launch the play button. It's building. Okay, now it's showing up this button, but it doesn't do anything. It only, the original button still works, but this list button still doesn't do anything. Okay, so we need to change that. So stop the app. What we're going to do here is we're going to go to the first activity because this is the view of the first activity. I'm sorry, the first fragment. So we go to the first fragment here, open up this, and we see here, there's a piece here that says binding, which what it does is this binding has said, I'm going to bind from here all the controls within that screen, that fragment, and you have now access to all the UI elements within that fragment. So it's saying if the button first is clicked, then I want to go to this, I want to do this action or navigate to this action. So we need another case for the other one. So I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it right below, but I'm going to highlight that by double clicking, by double clicking with my mouse, delete it, and then hit period, and then type btn, and you can see how it sort of helps me and says, oh, I found something defined here as btn list. And if you remember, I changed the ID of that button from button to BTN list. So I want to take that one. So I want to click and highlight that. So I'm saying now when this button, when the click occurs, there's a click listener, and this click listener is going to do whatever code is in here. Okay, so I'm going to do is I'm going to change this navigate to a different navigate. So if you look at this definition, if you right click, if you command button and click here, it's going to show you our graph, our navigation graph. So this saying from fragment one, you're going to do this action, but we actually want to do this action here. So what we do is this is going to take us to our list fragment. So I'm going to copy the name of this action here, copy it into my clipboard, go back to the first fragment code, and I'm going to change this from the like what I copied and pasted to this one. So it's saying I want to go from first fragment to my list fragment. So now if I try running this, and now I have the first fragment. If I click here, it'll go to the second fragment like before. Now if I click here, the list fragment appears. Okay, so now you can see this is the default implementation of a list fragment. So where did it get all this data? How did this all happen? Well, if you look at the code back here, and we open up the item fragment, you can see that we are opening up a fragment list, item list. This is the XML for it. And then you're saying, I want to put in here these individual items. And this is the Kotlin code that's pertinent for this recycler view. Okay. Now, go to the item fragment again, and then you see that here. Remember I told you about the adapter in relation to the recycler view. You see this adapter here, and you see this placeholder content. That placeholder content is actually defined right here. You see items. So if you right click, command click on that again, then you can see that this is opening up this placeholder content code. And you can see that this is an array list of placeholder items. If you look at placeholder items, okay, this is defined. This is again placed inside of the same class, okay. But you can see that there are 25 items. It puts all the items into the definition of items that was defined up here. So you can see this is how it put it together. Again, that's how it was able to put together just a very simple list of items. So this is a way for you to be able to build something a little bit more interesting. Is you can take this movie list XML, and you can see that there's two text views because it's saying this is a text view and this is another text view. But you can do much more fancier things by putting like an image view and many other kind of clickable things that you can sort of maybe show, let's say, a movie list or a list of properties and a little picture view of properties, or you can build like a Pokemon list, and you can do all kinds of stuff in here like that. Okay, so we're going to stop here for now.